The world's first commercial movie screening happened in 1895, and in the first years of cinematography, films were exclusively monochromatic, with the vast majority being black and white. Then, in 1922, the first color film was made in Hollywood, The Tall of the Sea. However, even after The Tall of the Sea in 1922, most directors still preferred the black and white technique, and it took several decades for color films to prevail. Nowadays, we can rarely come across a recent black and white. The audience is very much used to watching movies in color, so the majority of the audience will without doubt say that watching a black and white film is not overly pleasant for them. And therefore it is more difficult for black and white films to achieve commercial success, hence they are often unprofitable and studios tend to avoid them. Black and white film separates the film world from the real world much more clearly than the color film. Because after all, color is what we see in real life. Therefore, when we take the color away by film technique, we are more aware that it is a film process by which this is done. By doing so, we are more aware that what we are watching is just a movie. But if you think about it, maybe that's exactly what some of the more artistically inclined authors aim for. To make it clear to the viewer that what they are watching is a film world. To set a clearer boundary between film and reality, which then helps to take away the need to compare film events with real-life events to try to understand them. Perhaps the black and white technique of making films is a handy tool to encourage the viewer to think about a film in a more cinematic way. If you ask the viewers what they think of black and white films, most would say it's just an old filmmaking technique. While it is true that when we watch a recently shot film in black and white, the film can easily look old, but sometimes this is exactly the reason why authors choose black and white over color. The average viewer is familiar enough with film history to know that black and white films were once made. Thus, the black and white technique can be a great tool to direct the viewer to what was happening before, in the past, to something that emphasizes nostalgia. Instead of making the whole film black and white, some authors decide to include black and white inserts in their films, to clearly point out that the scene is happening somewhere in the past. In the past, this was not the case because the audience clearly knew that the film medium was monochromatic, and they took it for granted. But today, when color film is the universal standard, the viewer is aware that contemporary black and white films are not a result of technological incompatibilities, but rather an author's tool to achieve the desired effect, a choice. The world shown in color offers more information, so as such, it can easily divert attention from the plot itself. The black and white world, on the other hand, allows the viewer not to compare it with the real world, in which the film was shot, but rather to focus on what is often most important, the events in the frame. Speaking of which, it is worth mentioning that different colors affect our perception of content in different ways, and this can be avoided by completely removing colors from the frame, which again leads us to the idea of shooting in black and white. Black and white film also offers the possibility of achieving a stronger contrast, thus producing a more dramatic feeling in a given scene. However, removing color from the frame can also turn out to be a big problem. I noticed this most in John Huston's 1948 film The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. The plot takes place in beautiful nature, so it felt pretty depriving when the beautiful greenery of the forest took on a grey color. However, a far bigger problem for me in this film was recognizing the elements in the frame. I watched the film on a small screen, and the people in the film are placed in the nature, which is very rich in details, so I often had to literally look for the people in the frame. But you know what they say, everything has its own. Good examples of modern black and white films that we definitely recommend are Robert Eggers' 2019 film Lighthouse. Michael Hazanavicius' 2011 film The Artist, and the Tim Burton slightly older 1994 film Ed Wood. By removing the color, we have simplified many aspects of making the film. The film world itself is not as noticeable, hence the author is given the opportunity, now when he has eliminated many difficulties by eliminating the color, to dedicate himself more to the plot. Does it make sense to make a black and white film today? I think it does, because it's a very rewarding technique that should not be equated in any way with production impossibilities of the old way of film production. This is all we have prepared for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tell us what you think in the comments.